All right. So before I introduce our guests and drop out, I just want to say that we're at 40% of our fundraising goal. We've got $800 raised, and there's still time to donate and get your entry in for our sweepstakes to win fabulous prizes. To get your entry in, there's a little extra step where you got to send your receipt to phoenixescosplay@gmail.com. So if you've already donated, send that on to us. And now I'm going to bring on author Kerry Schafer, who also writes under Kerry Anne King. And then I will let Willow have the screen. So
yeah, you're welcome to join in on the conversation if you're...
Welcome, Kerry. Welcome.
I'm having fun here. I have a green screen and I'm noticing that it turned my hair green today, which is new. So I don't
It's
need
a good look on you.
Oh, thank
you. It's a good look on you.
I'll go with it.
I like the background though. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So, Kerry, please tell us about yourself.
Okay. Wow. That's an open-ended question.
I'm so sorry.
Let me see. I can tell you I live in the middle of a forest on 40 acres with an actual real life Viking, and I write books. So that's really kind of pretty much it.
Awesome. So Keisha, you're welcome here.
I'm sorry, I'm running a couple minutes late, guys.
That's
it's
okay.
been a day. So, but hi. I'm Keisha Acuff. I've read a bunch of your books.
Yay!
And I think they're wonderful. So, yeah. Let's see. What did you guys all get to before I?
She just joined the conversation, so I just had her introduce herself to everyone, and we hadn't really gotten started with any of the questions yet. So,
okay, beautiful. So, Willow, did you have any questions you would like to ask?
I'm curious about your new book. Please tell us about your new book. I'm so sorry. I'm really bad at this today.
You're not bad. It's one of those things. So the new book, which you can kind of see up here, is called Improbably Yours. It's a Kerry Anne King book. I write as both Kerry Anne King and Kerry Schafer. Improbably Yours is about a young woman who is set on a course that a lot of people might think is like really totally awesome in their heart's desire, but it is not for her. So she's about to accept a job that she really doesn't want in a high power position, and she's about to get an offer of marriage. A little bird has told her from a man she's not sure that she's really in love with anymore, and she's really feels like she's stuck in this life. And then at the big family 30th birthday party in the backyard that she is not also really excited about, this little guy comes in. He's a balloon man. He's got a bouquet of balloons and a package, and he sings her a song that was her deceased grandmother's favorite song, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, delivers the package, and it is from something that her grandmother left for her, even though her grandmother has been dead many years ago. Sends her off on this little quest to find something on an island that we don't think even really exists, but it does. And her whole life changes from there. So that's the setup for Improbably Yours. There's a treasure hunt. There's an island in the San Juans. There's a little romance. There's a little bit of magic.
I have noticed that as Kerry Anne King, you write a lot about finding like a true love. So let me see. Sorry, I gotta check my notes because I don't want to mess anything up. But there we go. So a couple of my favorites that I have actually read by you are Other People's Things and Whisper Me This, both by your Kerry Anne King. And I have noticed that throughout them, there is a theme of, you know, they're with the wrong person, or they were with the wrong person in the past and they haven't really found true love yet, or anybody decent really. Most of the people, I realize that most of the guys in your story that start out, I'm like, I would punch that guy in the face. I was like,
and yet, we all have friends who are with that guy, right? Like really smart, intelligent women who are somehow.
Hallelujah. One of my friends just actually left her. She just had a child not too long ago, but she finally had enough courage to leave her drug-using, abusive husband. And she is living her life. She is in a women's shelter right now, but I am just so glad that she was able to get out of there because, yeah, like you said, everybody knows that friend that is in that relationship that they do not need to be in.
Right.
And like, I noticed that that's a kind of a common theme throughout your books is like, there's these great women, but they're all with the wrong people.
I would take that a little step further in that what I see is the book's really being about is women who don't really know who they are yet.
Yes.
Which is
they
why they're
and then eventually find who they're supposed to be with through finding themselves.
Right. And once we know who we are, then it's easy to find that relationship that actually works. It's like, actually, I'm a mental health counselor, also licensed. And one of the things that I know about relationships is relationships based on I need you, therefore I love you, don't work out that well. Yeah. But if it's one, I love you, and therefore I need you, that's a whole different sort of a thing if you think about it that way.
But also, I did notice that most of the guys that they end up being with are like firemen or what is his name in I'm trying to think of what his name is. But Hawk, like he's the private investigator.
Hawk is a private investigator.
And then Tony in Whisper Me This, like I've noticed that they're all generally like kind of good, upstanding, like they all have that sense of authority figure. I feel.
I think probably they tend to very likely be based on, I was going to say on My Viking, but it's interesting. I think as women, we kind of imprint on our fathers, unfortunately for some of us, and fortunately for me. And so it's always this either trying to move away from that early relationship that was not good and damaged us, or trying to find people that are in some ways the same. So my father, his nickname was Mr. Big. He wasn't fat, but he was very tall. He was a large, strong, but very kind. Always very kind. I don't think he ever yelled at me. I adored my father.
I noticed that they're very well, or they're very soft spoken. Unless it's coming to like, if somebody is threatening, right. The female lead in the book, they're like, no, but past that, they're very soft spoken.
Well, in those two books, they are. In Improbably Yours, our hero in Improbably Yours is not soft spoken. He's actually kind of blustery and grumpy, but there's a soft side to him that we get to discover.
Did you tell us when it was coming out again?
Oh, it's already out. It came out in the end of October, actually.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, I do not have that one yet. I have several of your books. Actually, quite a few. I have a book obsession. So the recent one that I had been reading was Dead Before Dying, which actually Kristen was like, that one is by Schafer.
That's my Kerry Schafer self, yeah.
But there is a stark difference between like genres, I feel. But that's the one that I've been working on. I have a list of everything on my phone because I can't remember everything to save my life. But I did Whisper Me This, Closer Home, Everything You Are, Other People's Things. And then I have a couple other ones somewhere, like So I was like, I'm a bookaholic. So when
Me
Kristen
too.
was like, hey, can you do this? And I was like, yes. I need all the things. So I just started ordering and reading, and so I've been binging a lot of your books recently.
Oh,
But
that's
Kristen
fantastic.
said that she's also a big fan, and she was sending me all of the titles that I still need to look up and buy to get. So that being said, I did want to ask you, how many books do you actually have at this point?
In total, there are 13 that are in print, and along with 3 novellas. So I guess that makes 16 total. And then one of those series books, like the ones that you're reading, the Kerry Schafer books, the Shadow Valley books. The first 2 of those were published by a small press initially, and then I republished them. So that was an adventure. And if you're looking for the between books, hold off, because those are going to be coming back out in a special Kerry Schafer edition here coming up very shortly, which is super fun.
That's exciting.
It is
Nice.
10-year anniversary. I got the rights back, and I'm putting them back out as myself. So yeah.
So how
that's
long
fun.
have you been?
I'll have
How
to-
long have I been? Sorry, you broke up a bit.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I'm having internet issues. How long have you been writing?
I've been writing for, ever, really, since before you were born. I'm pretty sure. So long time. Been writing a long time. My first book was published, however, in 2013. So I'm coming up on 10-year anniversary with the first book between the end of January. So that's pretty exciting.
So what actually got you into writing?
I loved books from the time I was a very, very small child. My mother tells me that I used to recite my favorite book to people.
I used to do that too. My favorite book was about a bunny. It's not easy being a bunny. And my dad thought I was just the smartest little kid on the planet because I knew it verbatim. And then he realized that I just memorized the book.
He thought you were reading.
I was reading at a really young age, and I was like, oops. And then he realized that one day when I picked it up upside down. And I was reading the book upside down. So he was like, oh. And I was like, darn, I've been caught.
That's great. My very first one was The Pokey Little Puppy, which is interesting because it was actually about kind of a bratty little puppy that liked to break the rules, but still managed to be loved and fed every day when he made his way home through the hole in the fence. So.
Willow, did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
I'm just curious, what got you into writing romance?
Okay, so I'm going to say that I don't consider myself as a romance writer. For starters, they're women's journey books, so they're kind of like a psychological growth story. They have romantic subplots. So here's what happened. Honestly, this is the honest to God story because this is how things go in publishing, and I don't mind telling the truth. So my first book, Between, was fantasy. I adored fantasy. That was my first love. I honestly, when I read, I tend to read fantasy and mysteries, thrillers. I love these things very much. The fantasy books, I wrote 2 books of a trilogy. I was with Penguin Random for my first books, and they decided they weren't selling well enough, so they ditched the series with 1 book to go. So that was my first book that I did indie because I had to finish the trilogy. And then I started the Paranormal Mysteries, but they also didn't have any like big people wanting to buy them. So my agent, who's very smart, said, I think you might be able to do really well writing women's fiction. And I honestly at the time said, what's that? Sorry, I didn't know. So I had to do some research and read some women's fiction books. And it's like, I can read that. I can do that. That's psychological journeys. I'm a counselor. I've had all these interesting experiences with people during the years. I can do that. So then the publisher wanted me to take a different name. That's how Kerry Anne King came to be. So I love books that are about a growth journey, somebody finding their way to a better a more who they were meant to be, but I also do love romantic subplots. So you will find a little bit of romance in all of my books, but it's never what actually drives the action.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I need to clarify that, lest anybody's looking for straight up romance.
Somebody that does like romance, there is enough romance like in the books to kind of like for my taste, I'm like, okay, it doesn't go too far, but it's still in there, which is always nice because I don't know, I like reading that kind of stuff. But I also did find a commonality of, in your books there are a lot of like mysteries as to what happened in their childhoods, and they're trying to figure out like what happened. So they're like, okay, they either got adopted out, or their families were split, or they don't actually know who their family is, and there's always that little bit of a mystery that you leave in there. I feel like you only answer it at the exact end. Like you wait until all the way at the end, and then you're like, oh, this is what happened. And I'm like, it's good. Don't get me wrong.
Have to keep you reading.
That's true. I mean, I would honestly have kept reading, but I was like, man, you took the whole thing to. I wanted to know. It took that long to know, but I honestly love your writing. So
thank you.
It's actually pleasurable to read. It's very nice.
This is good. I would hate for you to have been through, books full of misery. That's actually every writer's worst nightmare. When I first started, I used to hate asking people to read for me because I'm like, they're gonna hate it. They're gonna suffer. It'll be horrible.
So I am actually an author as well. I don't have as many books as you. I've got six out. Yeah, something like that. And most of mine are anthology. But yes, the fear of asking people to read your book is awful.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'll sit there and I'll be like, yeah, I have a book. So I actually have my book here. I was on the indie author yesterday, so I have all my books here. But this is my book, and I'm like, they're like, what's it about? And I was like, I don't know how to.
That's so hard, isn't it?
They're like, well, you're the one that wrote it. Don't you know what it's about? And I'm like, yes, I know what it's about. But explaining it to you is going to like, it's a lot harder than people think. They're like, well, just give me a little synopsis. And I'm like, that's a lot of effort.
It is. That's one of the hardest things, really, is to take all of that work you've done, all the world building and the characters and the plots and the subplots and all of the stuff, and then break it down into like one little.
I had to have my editor help me with my synopsis for the back of the book because I was like, I have no idea. I was like, so she helped me write it because I was like, I may have written the book, but I have no idea what to write about the book. So, oh, sorry, I'm trying to catch up on all of the comments and stuff like that over here.
It's okay. Phoenix Sisters cosplay with coming up with an elevator pitch is tough. Do you have any suggestions for that, Kerry?
Good question.
What I've come to over the years is really, first off, I'm terrible for plotting, and I've been forced to over the years sometimes with book contracts to actually deliver a synopsis before I write the book. It always changes drastically by the end. But when the book is over, I find if I can go back to what was that seed of an idea that spawned the book in the first place, usually the elevator pitch is in there somewhere. And so I sit down, usually I just kind of start jotting down the main points of the story that I would want, if I was the reader, that I would want to know, that might make me pick up the book. So I start jotting those things down, and I keep playing with it and playing with it. It takes a long time to write an elevator pitch, I find, or a good like back cover copy is really time consuming to do well for all those reasons, because you have to kind of get rid of all of the subplot things. You have to focus in on what really matters, what is the main point. It's kind of like a 911 call. Really, it's like you call 911 and you can't tell them everything. Well, I walked in and I found the guy and he was lying there, and then I checked him and to see if you don't start there. There's somebody down here and he's barely breathing and he's bleeding and I need an ambulance right now. Here's the address, right? So it's kind of like that, I guess, if that helps. I don't have any easy magic solutions though.
So you said that a lot of the male characters that you write about or the good male characters, sorry, that you write about are based off of your Viking. So are any other elements in your book kind of based off of things around you, or things that you have experienced either through yourself or through others?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable, really, especially if you're writing the kind of things that I write as Kerry Anne King, those real life stories. How can you write something like that if you haven't experienced some of the things? And I think you don't have to have experienced everything. I, for example, have never been in a situation of domestic violence. I've been extremely fortunate that way. However, I have been, like I said, a mental health counselor, and I've worked in crisis mental health as well. And I've heard so many stories from so many women, which really was what drove Whisper Me This. I really just needed to help some of those people be seen, and to maybe help others who don't get that to understand how that happens. How does a strong, healthy woman get caught up into a situation like that? So I think if you've been through anything, we've all experienced grief, we've all experienced loss, we've all been hurt, we've all been betrayed. So when you're writing stories, mine are all pretty fictionalized, but I do draw on those elements. How did it feel if I'm writing about a death? How did it feel when someone that I loved died? And how would then my character react to that? Because she's going to take it differently than I did, or he did, or he, hopefully, because I'm not writing myself really in any of these stories.
We have thank you for giving them a voice, Kristen says.
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. That was, I think, one of my favorite letters that I ever got from a reader, was somebody who emailed me and said, for the first time in my life, I actually feel heard. And that was after Whisper Me This. And that made, everything in publishing, writing, all of that really worthwhile, for sure.
But also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I did notice that in Whisper Me This, not only did the main character have kind of an interesting past, but her love interest, Tony, is that what it? Okay, he had a pretty messed up childhood,
also,
and so it's nice. I don't want to say it's nice, but it's nice to have a male representative that males go through that sort of thing as well.
They do.
Because a lot of the time, most of the people focus on the women going through the hardships. And it was nice to be able to get that little bit of, hey, we're not the only ones that have to deal with abuse and neglect and all that other stuff. I don't want to give too much, for those of you that haven't read the books, I don't want to give away too much information, because there's a lot to unpack there.
Right. Well, and I think that was important to me. I think I was kind of struck by when I, as a mental health counselor, as I began to discover how prevalent it is, actually, even with domestic partner abuse, how many men are abused by their wives physically. It's really rather alarming, and they don't report because it's, considered unmanly or weak, or we try to make light of it because the women are weaker, and yet it's actually a very common problem. So a lot of people don't know about that. And although that wasn't, Tony's issue, it's something that I do like to kind of put out there for the world to be aware of.
Yes. It's always good to, like Kristen said it earlier, it's giving these people a voice. Yeah. Even if they are just fictional people, there's people out there in the real world that are going through a lot of the same circumstances and things that the people throughout your books go through.
Right. Right. And it's really fun to do that. One we haven't talked about at all is I Wish You Happy, which is the story of a woman who's a profound introvert, not only an introvert, but an empath. So she feels other people's emotions so strongly that she prefers to be with animals, and kind of, as the book begins, is a bit of a, social recluse. But I've had people write to me about that book also, thanking me for putting that out there, because it's something that they didn't feel that anybody would ever understand, that they felt that way. So it's always amazing to me when I just dive into a book and the character takes over. They know things that I don't know, and they understand things that I don't understand, and this sort of mystical, magical thing happens, and stuff gets into the book that I maybe didn't even know, but the character did. So that's always fun, especially when it actually does really connect with somebody, a reader out there in the world.
So what is your favorite genre? I know you said that you preferred some things that other people were like, so you kind of changed a little bit. But what would you right now? What is pulling on your heartstrings to write about?
I have all of these ideas. So my really happy place that I'm working towards is kind of a fusion of Kerry Schafer and Kerry Anne King brand. So as I said, my books are always going to have mystery in them, but I like a bit of magic. So whether that's magical realism or fantasy, I'm kind of trending toward magical realism these days. But then I also like the mystery. I love quirky characters, and it's some just general weirdness. So kind of bringing those things together. I have an idea I'm not ready to talk about yet that I'm really excited about exploring more when I finish the book that I'm currently writing.
And do you have a decompression stage in between writing, or do you find yourself going into another book while writing the current book?
For a while there, I was actually writing 2 books a year, one Kerry Schafer and one Kerry Anne King. There was a moment in time where my Viking said, please, can we not do that again? It was difficult. I was working full time at the time too. So anyways, I think it varies. Sometimes I need a little decompression. Sometimes books are really talking to me and I am playing with 2 at once. I don't ever go very long without writing something. I need to be writing in a week or 2 and I start getting really, really miserable and impossible to get along with. So
I hear you. Got to keep yourself busy. Yeah. I hear you.
Music kind of is an outlet to kind of just basically it's your form of art to kind of decompress and put your feelings and thoughts into, rather than just letting everything come out not so good.
Yeah, there is that. I used to be into music though, and even then, even when I was doing music, I still needed to be writing. And I don't know. There's something about it. I feel, I guess, kind of almost driven, called something. Writing is what I feel I'm here to do. And if I'm not doing it, no matter how much else I'm accomplishing, I always feel like I'm not doing anything. So I could do a gazillion projects in a day and accomplish a whole bunch of stuff and mark it all off the list. And at the end of the day, if I haven't written, I still tend to feel like as a slacker and feel a little empty. And so that's just something weird, I guess, about me that I've learned over the years. So I'm always writing something. And really, honestly, I have so many things I want to write right now. It's crazy. And I have to finish this book that I'm writing right now, which is a slow moving book. And it's not that I have to finish it. I do love it, but it's taking its time. I want to do a sequel to Other People's Things. Actually, I want to do a spin-off series to Other People's Things. It's a mystery series where
I would love that.
I know. Where the
like
2 of them
power.
What? Sorry?
I felt like it was a superpower.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know the book itself, but she kind of has like this 6th sense on where things belong.
Yes, which unfortunately for her often means that they don't belong where she finds them. And since they're things that belong to other people, she feels compelled to move them and often finds herself in a great deal of trouble legally and socially because of moving objects.
Yes. So I would, yes, do all the books because I would read every single one of those.
I got a lot of requests, interestingly enough, to write a spinoff from other people's things, and I thought it would be really fun. It can be the detective agency, Hawk's detective agency. It's already all set up. His mother works with battered women as an attorney. They've got this whole network of great characters that I can bring back, and we could play off that. And I do plan to do that. And I have another book that is really talking to me, and I haven't decided if it'll be a standalone or if I might just make it into a cozy mystery series. So that's happening. And then I want to write another book in the Shadow Valley series. And there's so many books, so little time.
So does that mean you kind of prefer writing as Schafer instead of King? Because I know that Schafer tends to lean towards more of the paranormal realm than any of the King books. Like, you can slightly taste it in the King books. Like, there's a little bit of like that mystery element and stuff like that in there. But then your Schafer books are like just
There is. And probably yours also brings in a little bit more magic. Other people's things had that little touch of magic in it, I think. But I think I just want to write as me. I hit a point where I don't like having it be this or that. I just want to. I call myself the queen of the misfit book. I should put that out there. I've always loved genre crossing as a reader and as a writer. Those tend to be my favorite books as readers, actually, that kind of go all over the place as far as genre goes and kind of thumb their nose at the rules. What? Sorry?
I said, boy, do I have a book for you then. I consider my latest book, it's like a horror romance. And people are like, is that a thing? And I'm like, yeah, of course it's a thing.
It's a thing.
But it is now.
Yes. So, but that's actually pretty cool. I love the fact that you're moving towards just writing as you rather than having to split your personality, that's no fun.
No, it's not just, it's time consuming too. I had 2 websites for a while, and I just finally was like, you know what, I'm done with that. So my website now is just all things Kerry, and I have everything all in one place because I got, I'm tired of that dichotomy there. If I do the spinoff for other people's things, I think I'm going to put it out as under both my names, actually. So that would be fun. By Kerry Schafer and Kerry Anne King. Because I could do that.
Yeah, you are the writer, so do whatever you want.
Well, when you're publishing your own, and I would be publishing my own if I did those. So yeah, there you go. Otherwise, if you're with a publisher, you kind of have to do whatever they want. That's not.
Yeah. It's never fun when you're with I mean,
it's fun.
It's fun, but they have a lot more say over what goes on, and I like to do my own thing. So I feel that.
It's fun to have control, but there's something to be said for the nice advance and everything too. It's like, and I like the team. One thing I do love about traditional publishing is you do have a team, and I do like that. If you have a good editor and a copy editor and cover designer that you're working with, that is really awesome, and I do very much enjoy that when that's in place, I have to say.
Oh, good. That was actually my next question. Was do you find yourself sometimes butting heads with your editors or your publisher over stories?
That has happened.
But sounds like you haven't.
That has happened. I've been very fortunate at Lake Union. I was with an amazing editor. She's retired, which is very sad. Well, not retired. She went off to do her own thing. She's doing her own editing now, but she was amazing, and we worked really well together. And she always supported me. So I did occasionally, with the cover design, there were some things that I kind of ran up against that I was butting my head against, but she always supported me on that, actually. So that was an amazing experience. I'm not going to name houses, editors, or experiences where that actually was not the case, however. So it can be, it can be a wonderful thing, and it can be not so much. I have.
It sounds like you have more creative control with your stories now with your current team. So it sounds like it's a better fit for you.
Yeah. That's it. With my first books, and unfortunately it was all right because the cover was good. But with Between, one day the cover just came into my inbox. Here's your new cover. Hope you like it. It's like, okay, cool. Fortunately, I did, right? but that other times people are not so lucky, and get things that are not so good, and they're stuck with it. So
we got a comment down here from Kristen Marie. I don't know if we popped it up yet. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see very well.
Kristen Marie says, I do love cozy mysteries, and I'd love more Maureen.
I love Maureen. Maureen is, by the way, this is Kerry Schafer books in the Shadow Valley Manor Mysteries. Maureen was really fun to write because at the time I wrote her, which was quite a while ago, she was turning 60, which is me now, by the way. She's much younger than I had thought at the time when I started writing her, but she's turning 60. She's been wounded on the job. She's a veteran paranormal investigator. The secret FBI unit that she worked for doesn't want her anymore because of her age and her injury, and she goes undercover in an upscale retirement community where she thinks she's going to be really horribly bored, but things are not what they seem at Shadow Valley Manor.
I mean, honestly, you start out with putting us with a dead lady right off the bat. You're like, let's just jump into this. Here's a dead body, and it's like, okay.
Well, that's always fun. So the thing about Maureen, she's not like any of my women's fiction characters. She's very outspoken. She knows exactly who she is. She is reached a point in her life where basically she's not going to put up with anything from anybody, and she really doesn't care what you think about her. And I loved that. It allowed me to actually say things out loud that I might have thought over the years, or to be a certain way with people that I wished that I'd been strong enough to be, because she really just doesn't she doesn't care what you might think of her. And that's really fun to write. Refreshing.
Oh, well, we have a pause for a second. I do want to remind people as to why we're here. If you guys, if whoever's in the background could play the little... Thank you, Willow.
Our charity partner for this year's Multiverse FunRaiser is the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health. They exist to spread awareness of aortic health and prevent unnecessary suffering through genetic research, widespread education, and radical advocacy. Simply click on the link at our website, www.themultiversefundraiser.com, that says donate here, and that will take you to our Just Giving link. All donations go directly to the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health. As a bonus, every $10 donation that you give enters you into our sweepstakes to win fantastic prizes. All information can be found at our website under giveaway. So thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting.
Thank you.
Kristen had up the total so far. Kristen, if you can hold that up again, $850 so far donated to this event and the fundraiser. Thank you very much, everyone who donated.
Well, thank you guys for doing this. All of this, I know it's fun, but it's also time consuming and gets exhausting. I know.
Yes, like several of us do several panels a day, so we're sitting in front of a computer and just talking to people, and it's like you said, it is fun. But oh my goodness, yesterday I had 2 panels in a row, and I was like, oh, I'm currently pregnant, so I was like, I've had to pee for the last 2 hours.
Help out wherever I can too. Like I was in between jobs the last couple months, so I'm able to put myself in the role of moderating and all that. So it's just like, okay, I'm free. I'm able to do this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I have done interviewing. I work with authors on the air, and so I've done interviews for them. I had my own podcast for a while. I got busy and I let it go. So I know it's, you got to do your homework. You got to be kind of on. Anyway, I appreciate what you're doing.
I'm actually very glad that we get to talk to you because, as a book nerd, anybody that writes books for to me is just, I'm like, yes, tell me all about the books. Like, I need all the information. I know it's hard to also, when people sit there and ask me about my books, first of all, it's hard to talk about your books in general, but you also don't want to give away too much to the point where they don't, you wanted to give away just enough to where they're like, hey, I want to read this. Yeah. You don't want to sit there and be like, hey, this is it from the beginning to the end.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, okay, well, thank you. I don't have to read it now. So it's a little bit of you kind of got to play the game there of how much is too much and not enough. But that being said,
that's a skill, I think, that it takes time. I still remember my very first interview. First off, I was terrified. Oh my God. And the first time you see yourself on camera on Zoom or something, it's really, really disturbing. Actually.
But see, here's my thing is just don't wear your glasses and then you can't tell, oh dear sweet Jesus. Yeah, no. Just don't wear your glasses and you'll be fine. Then you can't see yourself on screen.
Well, there you go. And then you run into, having to read something and you're totally screwed. So
I know if every once in a while you'll see me sitting there going like this, that's because I'm reading comments, because I can't see them.
And then there's me. I'm supposed to be wearing reading glasses whenever I'm at a computer, but I'm not. I don't even know where they are right now.
Wow. Okay, well,
that's okay. I can see without them.
You don't need them that badly then. That's all good. So
we just got a good comment from Stephen Fisher. It says, my wife Rebecca would like Kerry to describe her writing process.
Okay. Wow. So my writing process is kind of messy, really. Again, I am a big believer in just kind of diving in. When left to my own devices, I'm pretty much a pantser. If you don't know what that is,
I am 100% pantser.
Yay! High five! Solidarity. Yeah, I used to be 100% pantser when I started, and then I realized that there was some benefit to knowing something about plot. So here's my thing. I usually start with the seed of an idea and a character. So the two things have to kind of come together. So I have an idea of something I want to write about, and then I need a character that's going to help me tell that story. I sit down and I start writing. Usually the character just starts talking and the voice comes, and that's awesome. And then I have a process that I go through that I got from, oh great, I'm not going to be able to think of his name right now and give him credit. So, oh dear, it'll come up. James Scott Bell has his signpost scenes that I went to a training way back, actually before Between was published, and I credit him for getting me published. I had revised that book a gazillion times. I went to his 2-day seminar, I went home, revised it again, and I got it, and it finally got published. So that was when plot started to make sense to me, and he has a system that works for me as a pantser, because it's just basically, there are these scenes that need to be in the book, and they need to be at approximately these places in the timeline. And so I know I need to start here, and then I need to watch for, the moment of no return is the first big scene where my character makes a decision or is pushed into a place where there's no going back. So that has to happen, whatever that means. So I know I'm looking for that. And then I know about the middle of the book, I'm going to need something big to happen. And then I know towards the end, I'm going to have another no going back scene that pushes my character into the final conflict. So as I write, things are just coming to me. I like it best when I just sit down and I start writing and I think, well, what would my character do here in this situation? And so I start writing, and then there's another character. Well, what would that character do? And it's really fun if you play them against each other because they want different things. And then that grows into something else. And then something will come up that it's like, oh my God, I had no idea this was coming. What does it even mean? But I'll go ahead and put it in, and then it turns into something. And we just keep growing in that way, because again, I feel the story knows things that I don't know. Usually somewhere about 3/4 of the way through the book, I have to go all the way back to the beginning and start over, because I know a whole bunch of stuff now that I didn't know back then. And by starting over, I just mean revising, writing things in. But things happen. So for example, other people's things, try to imagine that book, you read it without Hawk. Hawk did not exist in that manuscript until 3/4 of the way through. If you can,
I couldn't imagine that book without,
I know, right? Because the book didn't tell me about him. So I'm stuck at about 3/4 of the way through. I'm in the shower where my muse lives, and we're having a little communion time in the shower, and all of a sudden Hawk shows up. It's like, hello, I'm Hawk. I'm a rather large, unconventionally handsome man. I'm a private investigator, and I'm here to solve all your problems. And I said, well, hello, come on in. Let's do this thing.
Welcome to the party.
Welcome to the party. So I went back to the beginning and wrote him in, and that was what made the book, right? So these kinds of things happen with... see, I'm having trouble remembering my own titles now. Oh, A Borrowed Life. With A Borrowed Life, I thought it was just going to be fun. I thought, honestly, when I got the idea, I was going to write a little lighthearted, kind of fun book about a woman experiencing life on her own, when she's older. And I had no idea that I was going to end up writing about some things, really hard things, actually, that are somewhat autobiographical for me. So it ended up being about a character leaving a religion that she had grown up in. It was very harsh, about being widowed, something also that happened to me, both of those things actually. So I got into the book and I was like, oh my God, if you told me this, I would not have written this book, right? So I feel that the writing process, mine, is a little sneaky. I don't know if I'm answering the question the way you wanted it, but that's okay.
Well, that's really interesting, because like I tend to write very similar ways, and apparently Kristen is a pantser too. So it's funny. Like I'll be trying to come up with conversations for my book, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it'll just be like. The conversation will be happening in my head as I'm like cooking dinner. It's like, wait, right. I'm not at my computer yet.
Right. That happens to me when I am in the shower, mowing the lawn, driving. Those are the times I usually get the best book ideas.
Inconvenient times too.
Well, especially you have to understand our lawnmower. If I stop for more than like 2 minutes, it won't start again for half an hour. It's really temperamental. So it's like, can I hold this in my head long enough to actually finish here? Or,
That is a good point, because I don't think people realize how easily fleeting ideas can be, because I'll sit there and I'll be like, oh, I've got this idea. And by the time I get the chance to sit down, I'm like, I remember it was about a duck. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a donkey. I don't know. So yes.
Yeah.
We actually are getting a lot of good comments in the comment section. If I can see them correctly. I may be reading them correctly.
All right. And Kristen is asking, what other authors do you read?
Oh man, so many authors. So right now, let's see, recently, and then I can't remember the names. So I'm of an age where everything falls out of my head. So forgive me if I struggle here. I am Maddie Dawson in women's fiction. I absolutely adore her books. She brings the magic in and romance and fun. Love her very much. I absolutely adore. Gosh, what's her name? I just finished reading the Chief Inspector Gamache series. I started Penny is her last name, the author. I'll think of Louise Penny. I started with book 1. It was free in Amazon Prime Reads, and then there's 18 books in the series. None of them were discounted either, and I read them all like in order. Finished one, got another. They were fantastic. I'm reading a Charlie Homburg mystery or a fantasy right now. She's always fun. What else is really talking to me right now? I don't know. I was just talking to someone else about, I adored The House in the Cerulean Sea. It's one of my favorite books that I've read in a really long time. I don't know. Those are some. There are more. I'm probably forgetting some of my favorite people right now. I'm sorry.
Is there a particular author that has inspired your writing? Or I'm sure a bunch of writers, but authors, but
interestingly enough, that goes way back. So first up, I don't know, somewhere around 7th grade, probably, I got into Victorian literature, and weirdly enough, I've got to put Charles Dickens in here. He was my guy. I read all of his books like in order, except for Edwin Drood. I have not read Edwin Drood because he didn't finish it, and I don't want to know. So I started with Dickens. Fantasy, then I have to put C.S. Lewis and Tolkien and actually Madeleine L'Engle in there. Madeleine L'Engle, probably, I was just thinking about this the other day, probably a lot actually, because she writes this thing that I love, which is people in the real world with some sort of magical, mystical element going on. So even though those books were tended to be young adult, and I don't write young adult, that really was something that stayed with me, I think, for a long time as something that I wanted to capture. I don't know. After those really formative years when I was young, I just wanted to write my own stuff, and I tend not to feel like anybody else is shaping what I'm doing all that much anymore. I hope. I try to avoid that, actually.
We've got some. There's like a million questions I want to ask you, but there's also another million questions that people keep asking in the comment section. So I'm torn, but we've got another good question.
Are you in any writers associations, and what are the benefits of such groups?
I am, and there are benefits. I tend not to really take advantage of them. I'm totally an introvert girl, to be honest. And I also don't like, I'm going back to the pokey little puppy who broke all the rules. I don't like organizations and rules very much. And so although those things are out there and I am part of them, I tend to have my own little group of people that I like to hang out with, and that's my favorite thing. I have my own readers. I have my go-to cheer me up, I'm really down, or I'm blocked people. That said, I am a member of the Women's Fiction Writers Association. They do some wonderful trainings. They have a fabulous writers retreat conference that I've been to a number of times. It's nice to have that kind of support. I belong to the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers. I try to go to their conference every year. I like the resources that they offer. I belong to some other organizations, but those are the ones probably that I make the most use of. Like I said, I'm a bit of a rebel when it comes to that stuff, and I find that when something comes up that looks fun and it would be good to be part of, I'm busy writing or off in another place, and I just don't want to commit to anything.
We have one more question here, and then we kind of got to unfortunately wrap it up a little bit because there's more